Hey everybody, Nate Lee here, and I had a request from Kim to do a video on tremolo. So here it is. Some of you who follow my pages have been following the video where I had some that big red piece of foam core, and people were guessing what it was that I was going to make. Well, what I was going to make was this comically large mandolin pick. This is a prototype. I'm going to try to make a better one. But the reason for this is so I can show you pick angles more accurately. So you've got the sides to see what the angle is, and you can see the white to see what the bevel is. So be using that today. So Kim, I know you've been waiting a couple weeks for this video, and you were waiting on me to make this. All right, everybody. So tremolo. With any technique, you need to break it down to the prime factors of that technique. So if you have a song that you want to play, it's more than just breaking it down to the licks that make it up, because there's a lot more going on. You've got to be able to hit a string accurately. You've got to be able to fret cleanly. You've got to remember what the notes are. You've got to play them at the right volume. The list goes on with every technique. Well, tremolo is no exception to that. And if you want to be good at tremolo, you've got to learn about the prime factors of tremolo so that you can make a good tremolo that fits each situation, because you're not going to want to play necessarily the same tremolo for each song that you're going to play or each situation that you're in. So let's get into the prime factors of tremolo. So I'm just going to put down my normal pick here and get out the comically large pick. And the first factor of tremolo is going to be your pick grip. You've got to hold your pick in a way that, hey, you've got to hold your pick in a way that keeps it from moving around in your hand back and forth like this. So for most people, that's a pick grip that looks like this. You can see that's where it is on my thumb, and then that's where it is on my index finger. So a pick grip like this does a great job of making sure that, I'm just checking my sound here to make sure I've got the right mic going on. Okay, I do. Good news. All right, so a good pick grip helps you make sure that the pick doesn't move around like this. So back to the comically large pick. Helps you make sure the pick doesn't move around like this. And it helps make sure that it doesn't sink up into your hand. And this has happened to everybody at some point, where the pick keeps moving up this direction, and you at some point get to where there's no more pick left. So here's what that looks like. You're picking along, and it ends up there. Now there's a really common piece of advice, which is to hold your pick as loosely as you can without dropping it. The trouble is, if you take that advice really literally, then you are going to end up having the pick push up into your hand. So if I hold this as loose as I can without dropping it, well, it's here now. I didn't drop it, but it's in a place where it's unplayable. Now if you hold your pick way too tight, if you're white knuckling on that pick, then that's going to make a pretty brittle sound, and it's not ideal either. But I've found for most people struggling with tremolo that pick grip is a factor, and often it's holding the pick too loose, because you'll be told you need to loosen up on the grip until you get the tremolo right. But if you weren't holding your pick too tight in the first place, then loosening up your grip won't help. And then for some of you, you really are going to have to loosen up your grip. Now we're going to work on the different factors of tremolo that create different types of sounds and different types of feel in your hand. So there isn't necessarily a right or wrong for a lot of these factors, but for certain situations there may be a right or wrong. When it comes to the pick grip, we're just looking for that sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone, where it's just tight enough to keep the pick from moving, and then not so tight that we lose tonal quality or make it really hard to pick. Now the next factor is where you pick. So you can pick all the way up here if you want, over the frets, all the way back to the bridge, and you get a different sound depending on where you pick. So back by the bridge is very brittle. As you move toward the fingerboard, it gets warmer. Here we're in what a lot of people would call the sweet spot. Real nice and warm, and then moving all the way up over the frets. And this is a cool place to make some nice tones. You'd think that the clicking would be a problem, but it really isn't. It just sounds cool. Sounds really nice. It's not the perfect thing for every situation, but it is pretty perfect for a lot of situations. Now, where you go on the string also determines how hard it is to pick. So it's pretty easy to pick up here. The string is bouncier. I think of it like a trampoline, that the string is able to move more here in the middle compared to on the edges. If you think about a trampoline, it's really stiff on the edges and really bouncy in the middle. Same thing if you think of a clothesline. You've got this clothesline, you're going to hang your clothes. It's really flexible and bouncy in the middle and really tight at the points where the clothesline is tied down. And your strings work just like that. So it's harder to pick back here and harder to play your tremolo, which is just repeated picking. And it gets easier as you move in this direction. And it's the easiest playing over the frets, which brings us to the next prime factor of tremolo, which is pick depth. So if you're digging too deep with your pick, so pick depth we're talking about in this direction. Here's a shallow pick depth. Here's a very deep pick depth. You couldn't even pick this way if you picked that deep. But most people pick with too deep of a pick depth, and that fights against your pick. Now, playing up over the frets like this makes it where your pick can't dig too deep. There's just no room. And most of the time when you're picking and when you're playing tremolo, this depth is all you should have. And I know that's a little hard to see, but basically we're talking one pick's width right here, which is 50,000ths of an inch for this pick. Your pick most of the time should not be deeper than that 50,000ths of an inch, and sometimes should be shallower. So picking up there keeps your pick from digging too deep. Now here's what it sounds like. I'm going to move to where my pick can dig too deep. Here's what it sounds like if I don't dig too deep. Here's what it sounds like digging deep. Everybody has probably heard their tremolo sound like that at some point. And it's awful. It's really hard to play. Where this tremolo, not digging too deep, takes very little effort if all of the prime factors are working together. So that brings us to the last two prime factors. They both have to do with pick angle. So most people are going to play with what we call a forward pick angle here. So my pick is it's not parallel with the string like this, it's leaning forward, and that front edge of the pick is rolling across the string as the hand moves it. So that's what most people would call a forward angle. Most good mandolin players do this. Some good mandolin players have a very flat pick angle like this. I see this more in the Monroe style players. And then a few good mandolin players have a backward pick angle. John Reichman plays with a backward pick angle. Amazing mandolin player. So you can be a good mandolin player doing any of these, but the vast majority of good mandolin players use a forward pick angle. And that's what I recommend you do because it gives you the best odds of being good. So with that forward pick angle, we get a nice smooth sound and the pick just rolls across the string. It slides past the string. Now here is a flat pick angle. Now the backward pick angle, it wouldn't be fair for me to demonstrate that because I have a right hand bevel pick. It is made for leaning forward, so it would make no sound in a backward pick angle. So that's not a good example of that pick angle. So that forward, neutral, or backward pick angle is something you're going to need to experiment with and figure out what works for you. In general, you're going to find the flat pick angle, like this, is going to get you a much more brittle sound compared to that forward or backward pick angle. So here's a forward pick angle again. Here's the flat pick angle. Neither of them are wrong, but most people tend to prefer the warmer sound most of the time. And now, for the last prime factor of tremolo, although I might have left one out. Well, there's one more that we might consider a prime factor of tremolo. So we'll call this the second to last prime factor of tremolo, and this is what we call in picking and out picking. So it has to do with pick angle. And we call this pick angle in and this pick angle out. So when you're picking in, your downstrokes are going to be picking in toward the top of your mandolin, like that. Oh, this pick doesn't sound horrible. Doesn't sound good either, but not too bad. So this is picking in, and this is picking out. So our downstrokes are now picking out away from the mandolin. And another way you can think of it is picking in, your hand is going to roll in toward the bridge, and picking out, your hand's going to roll out away from the bridge. So this is what it sounds like. I'm going to pick in here. My hand's flat against the bridge here. That's how far that angle is going to be. And the trouble with this is it doesn't work very well for tremolo because the downstroke has gravity working for it and has a big fat thumb pushing it down. The upstroke is fighting gravity, and the index finger is all that's pushing up. Maybe you're getting some support like this, but that's it. So picking in like this doesn't really do a lot of good things for tremolo. However, picking in a neutral position, like that, we're not in, we're not out, but in a neutral position, that starts to even things out. Makes it a lot easier to play. But if you really want to even things out, you can go to a slight out picking position. And now your downstrokes are working harder because the end of that pick is digging into the string and having to really push past. But your upstrokes have an easier time, and that really evens things out. So here I am picking out just a little. Now you're going to have to noodle with this and find exactly where the right point is for you for each tremolo, and each speed you go, and each place on the string you are, and probably a number of other factors like which fret you're pushing down are going to determine what kind of an in or out angle you need, as well as determine what the other factors should be. So you're going to find eventually a nice sweet spot. Now for the last one, the one I left out, that is how far your pick travels. Most people try to move their pick in a very narrow pattern, and that makes a very, very weak tremolo, so just barely moving the pick. A wider pick stroke, it seems like, oh, that would be so much harder to play with a wider pick stroke to play tremolo when it speeds up, but it really is easier. Your hand's going to have an easier time going nearly as far as it can go on the downstroke and nearly as far as it can go on the upstroke. Your hand's going to have an easier time making a good sound because it's got follow through. So it's like a baseball bat. Can you see that? So it's like a baseball bat. The bat starts back here and it follows through all the way to over there. Our pick needs follow through. If it's just stopping right after it passes the string, there's going to be a really weak pick stroke. So those are the prime factors of tremolo. So your pick grip, how tight you're holding the pick, where you're playing along here, your pick depth, your pick angle, forward angle, center, or back, your other pick angle, which is picking in or picking out, and then the distance your pick moves. And for each tremolo you play in each situation, you're going to need to play with those different factors until you get a sound you really like. So the factors here for me are my pick hold. I'm holding my pick moderately tight. It would be hard for you to grab the end of this and move it. I'm playing at this point right in the sweet spot, but sometimes I like to play just a little farther. I'm using very little pick depth. I'm using a forward angle. I'm picking just slightly out. And I'm making a nice wide pattern. And that's creating the tremolo. So anyway, those are the prime factors of tremolo. If you need help with that, you can sign up for a lesson with me at playnately.com. That's PLAYNATELY.com. And I'll be happy to help you. But start with just going over the prime factors in this video. I've had a lot of students that just in a single lesson, a part of a single lesson, we go over these prime factors and their tremolo gets better immediately. So rewatch this video and try each of these things over and over because you may be able to fix this on your own. And if you can't, don't worry, I will help you. So, Kim, thank you for the topic request. And if anybody else has requests, if you've gotten this far into the video, 15 minutes, thanks for watching. If anybody has requests, then feel free to send them in or just comment below. All right. Bye, everybody.